Great games at your table. I'm Jonathan Albin, and this is Game Master Soapbox. And today we're going to be having a conversation about the concept of the state of play. And I will be talking about that in a minute, but I'm first going to tell you a couple of stories, if I might. And these stories are in the form of, I guess, an extended allegory. So, in a world long ago, there was a nation, and this nation was resilient. It had faced great dangers, it had faced the threat of annihilation and destruction several times over. And in this particular point in their story, they were ruled, if you will, by appointed personnel who were appointed by their God. And this appointment process was pretty specific. In other words, when they were in positions of plenty and everything was going okay, the the god was not a meddler. He did not manipulate or uh, force the direction of the adventuring nation at all. And only in times of great peril would he raise up particular leaders to judge over the nation and determine what was needing to be corrected. Then the disappointed person would make his adjudications, make his changes, and the nation would right itself, as it were, and return to its resilient nature. Well, in this time, it had no king and was surrounded by nations who did. There were some nations that had legacies of nearly 1,000 years, and the people of the nation looked around and they saw organization, they saw efficiency, they saw uh, lawfulness, they saw order, and they began to call upon their deity to give them a king as the other nations around them had. Now, this seems quite curious because their focus had always been on liberty and their own creativity and their own decision making processes, and yet life had gotten rather soft for them. They were profitable, they were healthy, they had plenty to eat, and had no major restrictions. Now, they did have the problems everyone has in terms of chaos and disorder and inequity. And they demanded a king, thinking that that would be not only stabilizing in terms of their own internal structure, because they saw how the other nations seemed to fare, but also that they would um, be able to be profitable and have a figurehead to look upon as the other nations did, and be able to appreciate and enjoy this new structure. Well, there was, of course, someone who was at that point appointed to be their leader, again, chosen by God. And this person was in fairly direct communication and petitioned their creator and their God and asked, why are the people overthrowing me? Why are they not trusting me? You appointed me to be their guide and their judge, and they're not accepting me. And the God was wise. The God saw this and said, wait. Uh, you have been a faithful servant, but they are not being disobedient to you. They're being disobedient to me because they don't find the leadership that I've provided for them acceptable. And so, therefore, I will uh, let them choose from among them somebody that they feel would be a worthy king, but I will also, in my own way, choose a king. And we will see whether they come out to be the same. Well, of course, the person that the choice was made about was a paragon. He was quite literally a head and shoulders above everyone else. As a matter of fact, that phrase in our culture, head and shoulders, actually was created by this person. So that may give you a hint of where the story came from if you haven't figured it out already. This person, not only was he taller and more masculine, he was also more stern and severe and uh, kind of a letter of the law kind of guy anyway. And so he looked the part of a king. He fit the bill, so to speak. And so everybody rallied behind him. But um the creator, the God to these people, had already chosen someone else. But the point here is that this need for a king came from someplace. They wanted organization, they wanted safety, they wanted order. They didn't like the random chaos of their own independence. They sought oversight by someone as something that would make them a better people. And their judge, their guide, who had been appointed by God before the choice of a king, warned them, saying, when you have this person, you will not be happy because he will demand you work under his orders and he will demand many things and he will take, he will not give, he will be something of a burden to you, but you won't see it. So before we go any further, I do want to do a comparison. In today's world right now, there is a challenge before us in the role-playing community. And I know this is like people are going to be going, where were you going anyway, Jonathan? You're way off. We're talking about the real world, and you're talking about a historical argumentally a mythological text, and you're drawing from it. But here's the comparison. Right now, game masters have ultimately creativity, access to an infinite number of resources. In roleplay alone, in Dungeons and Dragons in particular alone, you have several different frameworks, several different worlds, several different lineages that you can pursue, and you as a storyteller have agency. But there is work involved in that process, and there is a need to describe and outline the story that you're telling and all of that. And with all of this freedom requires some responsibility and some work. And yes, we need to occasionally readjust to match ourselves up with whatever rule system we're going to be using. We need to uh, adhere to a mechanism, a set of judges or laws, if you will. But we're free. We're able to do that all. But we also are required to do the burden of work. Now, it has been said recently that we as a role playing community are having a crisis of game masters, that there aren't enough of us out here who are willing to be game masters for the number of players that are out there. And I submit to you that that at least this one game master, me, I'm willing to game master for everybody if that was the case. If there was only one left, I would be willing to take that mantle. But that's not what's going on. What is going on is that there is the threat or the challenge of a major corporation producing role play games deciding to back a horse that is an artificial intelligence. That the idea is that the game master role might be subsumed by a artificial intelligence in order to create the fairness and equity that players seem to want. That there would be a process where individual storytellers like myself would be the exception rather than the rule, and that the key would be they'd all be playing under the same regime, the same set of rules. And so, in like fashion to that little country, the role play community is saying, bring to us a king, bring to us a game master equity process that would make things fair so that all can be able to participate and everything. But they're not realizing, and we're not acknowledging, that to abrogate the game master role to AI or to surrender the creativity process to something that is literally unable to imagine, unable to uh, alter, but simply something that can only emulate or copy, is it's dangerous. And I I'm concerned, not from the standpoint of it affecting my gameplay, but that the sounding board of the role play community will soon uh, fall silent because the uh, majority will be able to hide themselves in the play environment behind a game master mechanism that handles most of their problems, and that they will accept the tyranny, they'll accept the unified vision and the dangers that that entails. So I may be talking completely out of my hat. They're probably, in a the much larger scale, everything doesn't matter. We're all just fine. Game masters can do uh, whatever they want, and it would not cause a problem such as I'm envisioning. But nonetheless, I see the state of play with two sets of eyes. As a game master at a table with players sitting in front of me, the game hasn't changed. Now, arguably, it's a more open environment for game masters to be creative than ever because there are a myriad storylines from authors and novelists and even the individual game master himself to be creative and to make the worlds of fantasy in their own image, so to speak. But I also see, with another set of eyes, the uh, simpler road of players leaning into this new curve and embracing this concept of uh, AI created content and thinking that that would be acceptable or exemplary. I've been watching the video responses to Baldur's Gate 3 and the commentary about it being too good for its own good, or that it is somehow going to damage the AAA gameplay environment because it's too effective or whatever. And all of that to me sounds like a bunch of crybabies, in that the a bar of excellence should always try to be attained for, and if a property is done it better than you have, then you've got a ways to go. But I also think it's a matter of paradigm. I'm running a little tiny company. I've published NycosRPG, and I've got a few dozen copies out in the world so far. It's available now through lulu.com, and I'll put the link in the text here in a minute so you can pick it up. And there are a lot of ways that a game like what I do is open ended, and while it doesn't have a monstrously uh, detailed myth overlaid on it. Instead, it's the structure for play rather than the mechanism, rather than the storyline of the play. The possibilities are more infinite, and the players have the opportunity to make the game what they want it to be. And I don't um, begrudge the product at Baldur's Gate for its efficiency. As a matter of fact, the only thing that saddens me is that such a dark storyline and a rather carnal process is really what the players seem to be drawn to, and that's, I think, unfortunate. I think that role play is a vessel for uplifting and improving people's lives, and this new direction of this Baldur's Gate property doesn't seem to do anything to elevate, but only to uh, draw down the ethical and moral restraint of players. But that's probably more than I want to cover at this point. But my point of talking about the state of play is that we are at a crossroads, or if we're not at it, we're very close to a crossroads between the death of role play as we experience it and the birth of something new. And I embrace this potential only because I believe that the NycosRPG mechanism is the method forward, is the way forward for game masters and creators to reforge the world, so to speak, to take the broken pieces of the universe as we know it and create a new Narsil. Take the pieces of a shattered play environment and bring players back into the heart of role playing the way it's been done for decades. But that's just me, and this has been my 20-minute rant or so on the state of play. I'll be on for a little bit longer. If you want to leave any comments or ask any questions, feel free to do so. I'm Jonathan Albin. This is NycosRPG, and this has been Game Master Soapbox. I'll be on for a little bit longer. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Alrighty, I'm still here, but I wanted to kind of get that story out of my head. The reality is I don't know. I'm torn and twisted, so to speak, by the way things are going in a lot of different ways. The Nikos RPG, the enhanced edition, is now available at lulu.com. Just do a search for Nikos RPG on that site and you'll find it. But I'll put the link in just a second. Let me pull it up real quick. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to toss them in the discussion. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Alrighty. So with that, I am going to go ahead and call it for the day. Thank you for staying with me, viewer. I greatly appreciate you being here. And if you have any comments or whatever, I always am willing to discuss whatever. And if not, make sure you watch for this video over on YouTube as well.